In this video, we'll discuss 4 different topics to learn about how birds around the world use tools. First, we'll talk about birds that make and use tools and why they do so. Next, we'll learn about the New Caledonian crow and how they make and use tools. Then we'll explore the evolution and transmission of tool use in birds. And lastly, we'll discover what all this tells us about the bird brain. According to Eldon Gray, a professor emeritus at Hope College and the founder of Birders World magazine, many accounts describe how birds around the world use tools to capture and attract prey. For example, the Galapagos woodpecker finch uses cactus spines or small twigs to extract prey from trees. And the brown-headed nuthatch uses bark scales as levers to pry up other pieces of bark for food. Jennifer Ackerman is a New York Times bestselling author who has been writing about topics regarding science, nature, and biology for more than 3 decades, and she is the author of The Genius of Birds, which explains much of the information in this video in its 3rd chapter. She also lists many examples of tool-related behaviors amongst birds. She says birds use tools to contain water or scratch their backs or wipe themselves down or lure prey. For instance, a white stork bringing water to its chicks in a clump of damp moss and then wringing it out to fill their beaks. African gray parrots bailing water from their dish with a tobacco pipe or a bottle cap. An American crow ferrying water in a frisbee to dampen its dried mash, and one securing a plastic slinky toy onto its perch and using the free end to scratch its head. A Gila woodpecker fashioning a wooden scoop out of tree bark to carry honey home to its young. A blue jay using its own body as a napkin to rid ants of their noxious formic acid spray, making them fit for eating. However, tools can be distinguished by the use of true tools versus borderline tools. According to a study by Louis Lefebvre and others, tools are traditionally defined as objects that are used as an extension of the body and held directly in the hand or mouth. By these standards, a vulture breaking an egg by hitting it with a stone uses a tool, but a gull dropping an egg on a rock does not. A wide variety of birds all over the world manipulate tool usage for their own profit, which is often food. However, there's one bird in particular that goes beyond the typical tool use.
Alex studies wild birds, which he releases after 3 months of research. This one is nicknamed 007, and it's about to attempt what Alex believes is one of the most complex tests of the animal mind ever constructed. The bird is familiar with the individual objects, but this is the first time he's seen them arranged like this. 8 separate stages that must be completed in a specific order if the puzzle is to be solved. And if the bird succeeds, it'll be a world first. He takes time to have a look and then starts with the short stick. Stage 1. He finds it's too short to reach the food. He then sets off to get the first stone. But he drops it. And another. He seems to be stuck. But then, something seems to click. He deploys the first stone. And then another. got it. The 8th and final stage. Success. 8 individual stages of one complex puzzle completed. That was remarkable. I've never, ever seen anything like it. Of all of the bird behaviour that I've seen, nothing matches that. I can hardly believe it. I'm still just running that sequence through my mind. It happened really quickly. But the immediate question is, of course, how on earth did that crow do that?
And that's exactly the question we'll be answering in the next topics. The New Caledonian crow, a member of the corvid family that's native to New Caledonia. These birds are shockingly skilled in toolmaking, creating not only 3 types of pandanus tools, wide, narrow, and stepped, but also hook tools and more. Jennifer Ackerman explains that while they may not make and use the variety of tools that chimps and orangutans use, they craft their tools with precision from a range of materials. They make them the proper length and diameter for any particular task. They modify them to solve new problems. They innovate. They use tools in sequence, using a short tool to get a longer one that can be used to get food. And perhaps most impressively, they make and use hook tools, the only species other than humans to do so. Just as you saw in the video, the crow 007 uses the small stick to progressively solve puzzles to acquire the longer stick, which can then be used to reach food. The New Caledonian crow is capable of making tools from a variety of raw materials and can manipulate new materials in captivity. For example, the New Caledonian crow's Wikipedia page explains this. In 2002, researcher Alec Kaselnik and colleagues at the University of Oxford observed a couple of New Caledonian crows called Betty and Abel. Betty's toolmaking abilities came to light by accident during an experiment in which she and Abel had to choose between a hooked and a straight wire for retrieving small pieces of pig's heart, their favorite food. When Abel made off with the hooked wire, Betty bent the straight wire into a hook and used the tool to lift a small bucket of food from a vertical pipe. This experiment was the first time the crows had been presented with the wire. In the wild, however, they have some specific designs that they manufacture often. Their infamous pandanus tools are made from the snipping of leaves from the pandanus trees that surround their home in New Caledonia. According to Gavin R. Hunt, the manufacture of pandanus tools provides a unique opportunity for study because of the artifact record of tool counterparts on leaves. In other words, when the tools are cut from the leaf, the remains of the leaf show where the tool were cut from and how. Hunt says this observation provides a complete artifactual history of the shapes and number of pandanus tools made at a site. With more and more observations like these, scientists have been able to discover how stunning the toolmaking abilities of New Caledonian crows truly are. According to Jennifer Ackerman, baby crows don't jump out of the nest able to make perfect tools. Some evidence suggests that they're genetically predisposed to use them, as woodpecker finches are. One experiment showed that young crows in captivity learn to make and use basic stick tools on their own, without exposure to adults. But when it comes to making complex tools, young birds clearly benefit from adult tutoring and mentoring. Her explanation shows that not all birds and their toolmaking abilities have evolved the same. Because every species of bird has evolved and is evolving separately, there is no one way to address the evolution of toolmaking in birds as a whole. So, we'll focus on New Caledonian crows. By referring to Gavin R. Hunt's and Russell D. Gray's paper on the evolution of New Caledonian crow tool manufacture, I found that their research concluded that the evolution of toolmaking in these crows is cumulative. Cumulative evolution occurs when something, such as a tool, is slowly changed over time. I also found that there are 3 important characteristics to identify if toolmaking is cumulatively evolving in a bird species. 1. the diversification of tool design, which occurs when a new tool design is added to one or more existing related designs. 2. Cumulative change, when something like a tool progressively changes over time. And 3. High-fidelity social transmission, or the faithful transmission of tool design through social learning. Because the New Caledonian crow species possesses these traits, toolmaking in New Caledonian crows is cumulative. To conclude their paper, they also say that because of the New Caledonian crow's remarkable ability to fashion tools as well as adapt to new tool designs, they therefore provide a unique opportunity to identify the cognitive and neural features that are required for sophisticated tool manufacture and cumulative technological evolution. While the term bird brain is often used to call someone or something stupid, it should in fact be used to call someone extremely smart, because while a bird's brain may be small in size, it is actually quite large relative to its body size and has the capacity to foster remarkable intelligence. However, some birds have larger relative brain sizes than others. As explained in Lefebvre's paper on tools and brains in birds, true tool users have a larger mean residual brain size, regressed against body weight, than do users of borderline tools. Think back to the vulture dropping a stone on the egg, true tool user, and the gull dropping the egg on a rock, borderline tool user. Because the vulture is a true tool user, we can infer from Lefebvre's findings that the vulture has a larger brain than the gull. Another comparison is made by Jennifer Ackerman when she explains that one study shows that the New Caledonian crow's brain is bigger than those of other crows. There is some ballooning in areas of the forebrain thought to be involved in fine motor control and associative learning. This may improve the crow's dexterity and boost its ability to pay attention to what it's doing, a big advantage in any mental challenge. In general, Corvus species have relatively large brains and are renowned for their considerable social learning abilities and innovative behavior. To help us understand bird intelligence even better, my dad and biologist, Greg Babbitt, will be answering a couple of questions for us. How does the bird brain and bird intelligence differ from that of other animals?
Well, the avian brain has very high neural density compared to the brains of other animals, and that was recently discovered. And it's kind of fascinating. It explains a bit of a paradox in that birds often don't have very large brains. You might have heard the sort of put down that you have like a bird brain as if it's not a very large brain. And so it was thought for a long time that birds weren't highly intelligent animals, but the discovery that they actually pack quite a lot of neural density into a very small space kind of changes that equation. So even though birds don't have very large brains for their bodies the way, say, humans or dolphins or whales do, they can be just as intelligent with less brain mass.
How does the bird brain and bird intelligence vary from species to species?
Well, birds, different bird groups vary quite greatly in their intelligence in general, and it's quite fascinating as to maybe why that is. Two groups in particular are known to be highly intelligent. Those are the corvids, which are the crows and jays. That includes American crows and also the Florida scrub jay, which is a very highly intelligent bird, and also psittacines, which are more commonly known as parrots, and their relatives. The Parrots are also known to be highly intelligent. So they don't just mimic people's speech, they actually do understand it at a certain level. There are other birds that are not very intelligent and are quite instinctive mostly in their behaviors. A lot of raptors are known to be rather relatively unintelligent and hard to train, particularly owls. And that sort of makes sense because they have most of their brain is actually devoted to their brain mass is devoted to their visual cortex, or the part that controls their eyesight for hunting. And also certain wading birds, which are also predatory, like herons, are not highly intelligent either.
Throughout this video, we've seen many examples of bird intelligence and innovation. While there is great variation in the cognitive abilities of birds, I think we can all agree that birds have far exceeded our expectations of intelligence on all fronts. And no matter where you go, you will always encounter the genius of birds.